What's going on, guys? My name is Trevor. Welcome back to the channel. The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Song, and Snakes came out just about a week ago, and today we are ranking all 5 Hunger Games movies from my least favorite to my favorite. This is one of my all-time favorite franchises, so I'm super excited to share my ranking with you. But before I do, let me know your ranking of all 5 of these movies down below in the comment section. What comes out on top, and what did you think of The Ballad of Song, and Snakes? With that said, let's hop into this. So at number 5 is Mockingjay Part 1, and the only big gripe I have with this movie is that it's just entirely a setup for part 2. They probably could have made this just a trilogy instead of 4 movies. Obviously, 4 movies makes this franchise a lot more money. But the part 1 is entirely just a setup of everything that happened from the second Hunger Games movie, Catching Fire, how it ended, and it kind of just building on that and really setting up for something greater in part 2. That being said, you do get introduced to newer characters in this movie. President Coin, who I've never been a big fan of. I always thought she was shady, and she was shady. But then you get introduced to a character like Boggs, played by Mahershala Ali. I think a lot of people forget he's actually in this movie. He is fantastic as a character, Boggs, throughout this film. And they're trying to film propaganda. And that's something that kind of takes me out of the movie a little bit. They're trying to campaign that everyone should riot and revolt against the Capitol. Nonetheless, this is more of a slower burn movie, but you still get all your characters back on a big screen. There's that mystery with PETA. What happened to him and what is happening to him, and each time you see him come on a screen from the Capitol, he looks like he's being tortured. It's terrifying to see, and Katniss is having just such a hard time at kind of joining the people to riot and also just kind of wrap her head around everything she went through. I think this movie's underrated. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I still really enjoy it. At number 4 is Mockingjay Part 2, the epic finale to one of the grandest franchises of all. And everything that Mockingjay Part 1 built up, Mockingjay Part 2 gives us those answers to, and it's epic. It's everything you really wanted throughout this entire film. Primrose dies. Never saw that coming in a million years. Absolutely terribly sad death, and that basically ruins the relationship between Katniss and Gale. Finnick, my all-time favorite Hunger Games character, he falls and has one of the most brutal deaths. I feel like they've kind of brushed past that a little quickly, but nonetheless, it shows that this movie's really not messing around. And by the end, when they capture President Snow, they do everything they're supposed to. PETA almost kills Katniss several times, and when Katniss, instead of shooting President Snow and executing him in front of everyone, she shoots President Coin because President Coin is no better than President Snow. It's always been a funny scene to me when, I didn't see that coming. I remember in theaters, my entire theaters pretty much started busting out laughing, as President Snow did when this happened, and I think this movie just sets up everything very nicely. Katniss gets a happy ending that she so deserves, and overall, it's a satisfying conclusion to one, again, my favorite franchises of all time. At number 3 is The Hunger Games! And The Hunger Games is one of the most creative and yet brutal movies I ever witnessed in theaters. And I remember when I saw this with a bunch of my friends and our parents came along, our parents were not happy we watched this movie because it is extremely brutal. And even when I go back and rewatch it today, I always say, gosh, this movie is brutal. And just the creation of this world, and basically this is the worst fate you can have as a kid, and it's terrible. Whoever created this, Suzanne Collins, you got a twisted mind, lady, but nonetheless, it created a fantastic world. Panem, the way they just opened this movie so subtly, you get introduced to these characters of Katniss and Gale and Pizza Malark, and they just kind of gravitate towards you. Katniss isn't the most likable, but for whatever reason, you love this character. And then you get into the overall games, and it is insane the way they created this and the way they're making this almost like, hey, it's America's Got Talent, but only one of you's gonna live. I think that is so creative because whenever you're watching this and the way they're creating the games and throwing more things in there, you're on the edge of your seat. The movie's intense. It has emotional beats throughout there. When Rue dies, that's probably the most emotional beat throughout the entirety of this. When Katniss volunteers for Prim, that just shows the love that one sister or one sibling can have for another, and it just hits you right in the feels. And then all of a sudden, they can have 2 winners this time around. Katniss and PETA are the first dual winner because they are so madly in love. And it's just so cool to see everything they bring to the screen, how well they handle it. And they're the winners, they're the victors. And little do they know, their world's about to be turned upside down by the end of this movie. I absolutely love it. At number 2, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The more I think about this movie, the more I absolutely love it, and it's creeping its way into my top 3 of the entire year, for that matter. To get President Snow to be so likable and charismatic is something I never thought that could be done, and it is done. A young Coriolanus Snow is so, first off, handsome. We just gotta call it how it is. Second off, This guy is so likable, and he's giving so many ideas to the Capitol, and he's giving so many ideas because he's almost blinded by love for Rachel Zegler's character, Lucy Gray Baird, who I thought was just perfection in this movie. And she's so just witty, and it's a little bit different, and she has these songs she performs throughout, and they really hit on that throughout the entire movie, and it just works really, really well. And Coriolanus is the first person to mention that we should have mentors. We should get these people in front of the big screen so that people want to watch it. And you see that Coriolanus actually has a heart. He's actually a human being throughout this movie. And then you slowly start to see the dog side come out. And when you start seeing the dog side come out, it's absolutely terrifying that Coriolanus is actually a scumbag that we know he is. Thought it set it up beautifully. If they want to do more of these prequel movies, I would absolutely be here for it. But at number 1 is Catching Fire. This is one of my favorite sequels of all time. We get introduced to Finnick Odair, my all-time favorite Hunger Games character that I mentioned that before. He's my all-time favorite. But this time around, it's so different because the stakes are so much higher because it is basically the Tournament of Champions. And everyone who's back has won before, whether that was from hiding and everyone else died, or whether that was from dominating the games. And this arena is insanity. You get the addition of Philip Seymour Hoffman, Plutarch's character, in here, and he's like the game's creator throughout this movie. A little bit slower in the beginning, I will admit that, but this is one of those movies when I was in high school, it was like over spring break or summer, I watched this movie like 2 times a day for an entire week straight. That's how much I love this one. And all of a sudden, when you start realizing all these characters are helping Katniss, it starts to kind of click that there's something bigger going on that we have no idea about. And when Katniss ends the games by shooting the bow and arrow into the shield, and a crazy way to end the movie because Katniss isn't happy that she's alive. They're supposed to save Peter. They're not supposed to save her, but to get all these people back and they get them out and they really kind of start the revolution, start the riot, and it just makes for one of my all-time favorite sequels. It makes for my favorite Hunger Games movie of all time. That's going to do it for my ranking of all 5 Hunger Games movies. Let me know your ranking down below in the comment section. What comes in last? What comes in first? Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Thank you guys so much for being here and for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.